Hi everyone, my name is Abby Lucas and I'm taking the class Archaeology and Film. And for my final project, I'm going to be discussing the 1998 film by director Tony Bancroft known as Mulan. For a brief summary, this movie follows a young woman living in Imperial China named Mulan, who disguises herself as a man in order to take her father's place in the Chinese army, fighting against their bloodthirsty and unforgiving enemies, the Huns. She faces many challenges in this process. Having to keep your gender a secret is definitely not an easy task. But, in the end, through her bravery and perseverance, she proves herself to be critical in saving her country, and she's commemorated for that brave act. This film has heavy themes of self-discovery, courage, honor, and gender roles, and it represents history in a very fast-paced and family-friendly way. Mulan is an animated family movie, so it is portrayed in a very lighthearted manner, despite its heavy subjects of China's war-ridden past. This includes silly characters, entertaining dialogue, and lighthearted jokes throughout the story. From the very beginning, Mulan is rendered as clumsy, and she's sort of outcast from the other women of her culture, her age. The beginning of this movie takes the viewer through her struggles with trying to uphold her family's expectations. She tries her best, but she's not viewed the same as other women. She doesn't feel the same as other women, and she's worried that with that she will disappoint her family. The gender roles presented in this film are similar to those that we discussed in class across multiple of the materials that we studied. For example, in the film 10 Canoes by Peter Jagir, the women of the indigenous Australian tribe represented are expected to be the caregivers, doing things like preparing food, bearing children, and taking care of those children while the men go out to get food, fight, and protect their tribe. Both of these movies, although they're set in very different places and times, highlight the popular gender roles that we see throughout history. Although, of course, there are some exceptions, these two films show a very popular ideology of the duties of men and women. In Mulan, I noticed that there was also a heavy emphasis on the women's looks. Several scenes in the beginning of the movie show her scrambling to bathe, dress, and put on as much makeup as she can in order to look presentable to her elders. I found this aspect of the story to be very similar to the film Mohenjo-Daro by director Ashutosh Gowariker, where, in the Indus River Valley civilization portrayed, a woman's looks, which are things like her hair, her jewelry, her clothes, were a sign of her social status. This is shown through Shani, who is the love interest of the main character Sarman. She is a woman of very high status, belonging to the highest class family in her society. So because of that, she's held to the highest standard when it comes to her looks, which is shown through the confusion of the city when she decided to roam around in casual clothing. Throughout history, it's common for a woman's worth to be held to what she looks like, which can be seen across any culture, including those portrayed in Mulan and Mohenjo-Daro. Another huge theme in this film is its representation of Chinese culture, which can go along with a lot of the discussions that we had in class about whether the films that we watched were a good representation of that culture, maybe somewhat good or bad. Like I mentioned before, one of the huge motifs of this movie is upholding family honor and commemorating one's ancestors. I found this to be similar to the film we watched in class, which was Ryan Coogler's 2018 film Black Panther. In this movie, main character T'Challa is faced with the task of carrying on his father's legacy as the king of Wakanda after his sudden death. This was definitely not an easy venture, as it wouldn't be for anyone, and there were many ups and downs along the way, similar to Mulan's journey to honor. In the end, T'Challa rises to the throne and goes on to help nations across the world. Although T'Challa and Mulan come from two vastly different backgrounds, both of these characters are motivated by a deep sense of duty to their loved ones and their cultures. In history, it is a common tradition to honor one's ancestors. cultures across the world practice this in different ways. In the movie Mulan, several characters are shown praying to their ancestors. In the film, the ancestors are seen coming to life as ghost-like figures who discuss how to give Mulan guidance and help her throughout her way in the war. Both Mulan and Black Panther represent the importance of filial piety in history. The term filial piety stands for the virtue of upholding respect and care for one's parents, elders, and ancestors. Filial piety is a crucial moral in the religions of Confucianism and Buddhism, which is most likely what Mulan belonged to, although it is not confirmed, as well as many other religions. Both main characters from these movies represented this virtue through their willingness to sacrifice themselves for those who came before them. In all, the 1998 film Mulan is a lighthearted representation of the past that, despite being fictional in nature, portrays the culture and context of Imperial China in a lighthearted and suspenseful way. Thank you for listening.